I just kept it up. And as I got older, things changed. My interests changed. I guess my skill level in certain things changed. I found that I had a real finesse for martial arts, particularly kickboxing. So got very involved in that. Really loved it.
So we might have to make some videos then on our YouTube for that. You can teach me, because I'm a good puncher. I'm not a good kicker, so I need some kicking help.
Well, I started later. I mean, I was in my late 30s when I picked that up, but I picked it up very quickly, and probably my dance background had a lot to do with it. Like, I was very good at striking. I had great flexibility, and so I just picked it up very quickly because I loved it. I progressed through it quite quickly and actually competed. And I don't know if I did so well because I was that good, or just that fear is an excellent motivator when you're standing on the mat against somebody that's been doing it for 10 years and you've been doing it for 6 months. Yeah. It's like do or die.
That's right. Survival mode.
Survival. So I got really good. And then I was having trouble with my back. I'd always kind of had trouble with my back. I was always very tall for my age. So, we always attributed a lot of it to growing pains and just growing quickly and being tall.
Yeah. Well, you're like, what, 5'10" almost?
5'10", yeah. And I ended up just basically like going full steam, like 210 miles an hour, and it felt like I hit a cement wall. I woke up one morning and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't turn my head, and I was in the worst pain of my life. Had no idea what was going on. I hadn't injured myself. I hadn't been in an accident. I had done stupid things growing up and bucked off horses and rolled quads and all that kind of crazy stuff. Sure. But I hadn't, we couldn't connect this to something that had just happened or recently happened. So anyways, turned out I was, going in to see the doctor once I could get out of bed, and was told that I had, degenerative disc disease. That's where that started, which then went on to, this was over like probably a 2-year period to find out that I had an undiagnosed form of spina bifida, and was told, well, no more martial arts, no more. By this time, I did go into this, for probably about 30 days. I did let myself become a victim. Like, poor me, oh, poor me, poor me, poor me. And I did a lot of crying, a lot of feeling sorry for myself. And then I just thought, what am I doing? Because this is not what my parents raised me to be like. They taught me to be a fighter. So I took that fighting spirit into my personal life in terms of fighting for my health and to get back to at least as close to possible as to where I was. So yeah, I all of a sudden shifted my focus and just focused on training at the gym, because that was the one thing I seemed to be able to do and modify things to the point that I wasn't becoming hurting myself further or being in further pain. And gradually just that competitive spirit kicked in, and I was approached by a coach who said, you're kind of nailing this. How about we kind of shift your diet around, and why don't you think about competing? And there we go,
And this was, how long ago was this now at this point, where you started considering figure competition?
Yeah, I started competing. It's 2018. I started competing in 2000, and I did my first competition in 2012. So I was an old gal getting on stage. Old gal. Compared to a lot, because I'd never done that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a whole new world. And so this whole, you said you spent about 30 days kind of in that dark, the doldrums of what's my life look like, being physical was such a huge aspect. And what would you say during that time? I mean, obviously you kind of covered it very briefly, just that the things that your folks had kind of instilled in you helped you get past it. But could you dive a little deeper into that? Because I think a lot of people, it's where they get stuck in life.
Yeah.
When they get bad news, when they go through a really life-altering, situation, loss of somebody, or something physical, obviously, or a disease of some sort, cancer, bad news, and it can throw them off to the point where they never recover.
Oh yeah.
So, with something like that, what was it really that would you say was your source of strength?
Well, definitely my children. Looking at my children and looking ahead as to what did I want that to look like with them moving ahead. I was always that mom doing the big crazy things, and I wanted to keep doing those big crazy things because we were that kind of, again, my kids were all very, very competitive and involved. So I didn't want to be a bleacher mom, I also wanted, not just for that aspect, but I also wanted to be able to be an example to them that life sometimes isn't fair. No. I mean, sometimes it throws something way out of left field that you're not expecting. And that doesn't have to be a huge defining moment in your life as far as it knocking you down, but it can be a massive defining moment in what you decide to do in that moment.
Sometimes it's just a difficult time in your career, in your professional life. Sometimes it's in your personal life, but we all encounter different things. We're parents, we're siblings. We're children of others, and so it really comes down to, I think, like the relationships and stuff that we've formed or created in our lives, because we can't really go it alone.
No, we can't. And I think we're always I don't know if reestablish is the right word, but maybe reaffirming or investing in making just more solid that relationship with ourselves. And that's something that's taken me a really long time, because I'm a people pleaser, and I think a lot of us in this profession, we're people pleasers. We come here and we do what we do because we want to do a lot of things for other people to make them feel better, to help them. And when you're in that kind of industry where help is the foundation, you can become a yes person easily, a people pleaser easily. And in all of that, your relationship with yourself can get lost. And I used to think of that as, well, that's so selfish. I have to put everybody before. I mean, I'm a mother. Everything and everyone has to come before me.
Right.
And it took me a really long time to give myself permission to be a lot more selfish, and to actually work on nurturing a relationship with me. Because I one day I was like, man, I was talking to my youngest son about something. I can't remember what, but he's my inquisitive little old soul thinker. So he used to amaze me with these big old person questions out of this little body. And I used to think like, okay, God, what did you, there's a test in here for me, right? And I can't remember what we were talking about, but I said something about, I remember thinking like, my gosh, what am I really teaching him? I'm teaching him he's got to put himself last,
right?
To put everything and everyone else first, and that's not what I wanted to teach them. I didn't want them to be selfish where it was always me, but there has to be, at that moment I was like, that was a profound moment and there was nothing special going on. I was probably wearing sweatpants and probably spaghetti stains on my shirt. My hair was a mess, but I remember thinking, wow, I have done absolutely little to nothing at all to invest in my relationship with myself. So really, how good am I with any of my other relationships? If I'm only how am I showing up? I'm showing up less than 20%, and that isn't good enough.
And that's why I think I've gone to this, I guess you could just say, analogy before, where if you're in an airplane and there's an issue and
it's a great analogy.
The little deal drops down from above for you to breathe, that for oxygen, you got to put that thing over yourself first before you can help anybody else. And in life, it's very much the same way. We're not very good for other people if we don't take time to take care of ourselves. A difficult moment or a dark time in their life is like, look at what your needs are and not just what everyone else needs.
Well,
and hopefully they'll be a little bit more aware too and try to help you along.
Well, there's a flow and balance in life that I think there's like a synergy that if we're not fighting it, if we allow, and this is, I don't know if I'm going to try not to butcher it. It sounds really good in my head, but it might come out sounding all messed up.
Oh, you'll do great.
But there's a synergy and flow that I think is meant to happen as part of our learning, our growth, our contribution, our that investment and the relationship with ourselves. That is a natural process that doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always feel warm and fuzzy. It doesn't always come with hugs and puppies. But if we let it happen and don't fight it as much, it does allow for these other elements and people and relationships to come into our lives when needed. And that's another thing. It can be really hard to forget it. Asking for help for some people is like just, you never ask for help.
That's right.
And sometimes just even if you can ask, accepting it can be very difficult. So there is a natural flow to how this works. And I think we have to let go of trying to fight it so much. And I'm not saying that because I've got it figured out. I'm still figuring it out. And you know, when I found out about the degenerative discs and the spina bifida and all that stuff, you know, I remember then thinking like, oh my gosh, you know, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me.
Exactly.
And you know, it wasn't. I mean, you know, there was things after that. You know, there was a whole section, there was a whole many years there where my personal life was falling apart, and I thought that was the worst thing. And then a forced kind of, you know, some time separation from my kids, which near did me in. I almost didn't get through that. And I kept thinking, like, why do you keep sending me this garbage? Like, how many times do I have to work, you know? But I just was like, okay, time to get in touch with yourself again. Time to get in touch with yourself again. And when I stopped, when I allowed myself to be a little, you know, fall down and bleed a little bit, accept that this is what was happening, accept that I had the strength to get through it. I was also an example to my children. And within that flow, there were people that came in and surrounded and kind of picked me up and carried me through some of that stuff too.
Absolutely.
It's not easy.
No.
It's not easy. We can get caught in this mentality of got to do it alone. Got to, you know, in Canada we have a saying, "Cowboy up." I wish I could just erase that. You know, or just, you know, we hear like "man up" and these things that I think you know, on the humorous side, they're all well intended. But I think sometimes we can maybe take it a little too far in that, you know, and in doing that, we can allow ourselves to stay longer in that victim role, like, well, I'm not going to ask for help, I'm not going to take help. But if it helps you get up out of that dark place, why not?
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Right. Thank you so much for watching the Critical Bench YouTube channel. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, drop us some comments or questions below, hit that subscribe button right there, 5 ways to become tough as nails right here, and another video from us. We'll see you real soon.